Hi there, in today's video I'm going to show you 15 essential tips that I think every Kindle owner should know. Now these 15 tips are actually part of a book I just published with 46 different Kindle tips and tricks. The book itself is only an hour long, so you can read all the tips and tricks. They progressively get more and more advanced. Link down below if you are interested. The book is currently on sale, but for right now, let me show you the first 15 essential tips. Tip number 1 is all about your privacy. In today's world, that's a very important topic, and Amazon is no exception. They are tracking every single tap that you make while reading a book on your Kindle. Now, lucky for us, they do have a very easy setting you can navigate to. Under Settings, Device Options, Advanced, and then Privacy, you can disable this setting to make sure they aren't using your information for marketing purposes. They'll still show you recommendations, but you're not being tracked as much as you normally would be with this setting turned off. Now, one more pro tip: if you are only using Kindle on one device, whether that's your Kindle or your phone, and you aren't syncing between multiple devices, I would also recommend turning off the Whisper Sync setting. This is what they use to track every single tap you make while reading a book to make sure they can sync it between all your devices. But if you're only using one device, turn this setting off and you'll be much more secure. Tip number 2 is about those pesky lock screen advertisements. Now, when you buy a Kindle, at least in the US, you have to pay $20 extra to remove recommendations off of your Kindle screensaver. Now, I haven't tried this myself, but a lot of people in the community have told me that all you have to do is contact Amazon after you buy your Kindle, and they'll actually remove the ads for free if you ask nicely. This is a perfect segue to tip number 3, which is called the display cover setting. Once you do remove advertisements from your lock screen, you'll then start to see regular Kindle screensavers on your Kindle. I really do like these. They look really nice. But if you want your Kindle to feel more like a real book, you can turn on the display cover setting, and now you'll start seeing book covers of the last book that you were just reading as the screensaver. Tip number 4 is about getting books onto your Kindle. Now, the most obvious way is to use the Kindle store that's built into your Kindle. This is a great way to buy books on your Kindle itself, but I prefer not to use it because it's very slow and clunky. Searching for books and finding new books on the Kindle store directly on the Kindle is not the most pleasant experience. I prefer buying all my Kindle books directly on the website using my computer and then delivering the books to your Kindle. That delivery feature is really cool. It'll automatically load up the book that you just bought on the computer to the Kindle that you have in your hands. Tip number 5 is about returning Kindle books. Let's say, for example, you buy my book that I just released with 46 Kindle tips and tricks, and after reading the first few pages, you decide, hey, this book is not for me. You have the option to return it for a full refund as long as you're within 7 days. Now, my quick disclaimer about this: do not do this just because you can. What a lot of people have been doing is buying a book on Amazon, reading the whole thing, and then returning it within 7 days. You do not want to do that. That is just not cool at all. You want to support the author that you're reading the book from. Also, Amazon is rolling out a new feature. I'm not sure if they've already released this or not, but basically, if you read more than 10% of the book, you will not be able to return it without contacting support directly and talking to somebody. Do not abuse the system. Returns are meant to be done in case you buy a book that you don't like, not just because you can for a full refund. Tip number 6 is the feature that I use the most on my Kindle. That is the highlighting feature. I love to highlight while I read. Anything that stands out to me, like a quote that I really like or a lesson that I learned that's really, really important to me, all you have to do is press and drag on a sentence or an entire paragraph or an entire page, or even multiple pages if you want. You can highlight as much as you like while you read by dragging your finger across the text. It's very simple to do, and it makes reading a lot more engaging. Now, going along with your highlights, tip number 7 is about adding a note attached to those highlights. So say you highlight a quote while you read and you want to write down what you're thinking while you're reading. Those ideas that come up while we're reading are so valuable, and they sometimes just slip away if you don't capture them right away. So I always like to capture those ideas in a quick note. After you highlight something, just tap on your highlight and you'll see the note option right there. Press on that and you can type in a quick note. Tip number 8 is also one of my favorites. If you're reading a book and come across a word that you just aren't familiar with, most people know you can press and hold on the word to get a dictionary definition. But what most people don't know is on top of that, you can swipe to the side and get a Wikipedia blurb of that word as well, which can sometimes be a lot more helpful for getting additional context. And if you swipe even more, you can get to the translate section. You can translate the word to a different language. Tip number 9 is one of those obvious little tips that if you already know, you're probably like, what the heck, why am I sharing this? But if you don't already know this, it will completely change the way you use your Kindle. What I'm talking about is swiping to turn pages. Say, for example, you're holding your Kindle with one hand. If you're right-handed, for example, say you're using your left hand to hold it and you want to navigate to the next page. The way you normally do that is by tapping on the right side of the screen. But if you're holding it on your left hand, reaching for the other side of the screen may not be as easy. What you can do instead is simply swipe anywhere on the screen in either direction, and you can switch pages that way. This avoids having to tap on any specific part of the screen. You can swipe anywhere on the screen and navigate left or right anywhere you want. Tip number 10 is a personal preference. I don't like using this feature, but I know a lot of people who do. What I'm talking about is dark mode. To activate dark mode, swipe down from the top of the Kindle screen to open up the quick actions menu and turn on the dark mode toggle. What you're gonna see here is all the colors that will be inverted. You're gonna have a black background with white text. Tip number 11 is something called airplane mode. Now, most people think of airplane mode as something you use while you're traveling, but on a Kindle, I think 99% of people who I know use airplane mode don't use it while actually on an airplane. They're using it to save battery. Say, for example, you have an old Kindle, a Kindle that doesn't last very long, or maybe the battery just isn't as good as it used to be. Using airplane mode will shut off the Wi-Fi and all connectivity on the device, but it will also save a lot of battery life to let your Kindle last longer so you can read more books between charging it. Similar to airplane mode, we also have tip number 12, which is Bluetooth. All modern Kindles have support for Bluetooth. This can be really useful if you want to listen to Audible books directly on your Kindle. Now, I like listening to Audible on my iPhone. I have the Audible app. It's so much easier to use while traveling around on the go. But if you want to have your Kindle be your central device for all things reading, including audiobooks, you can actually download Audible books directly on your Kindle and pair your AirPods or any Bluetooth speaker through the Bluetooth settings to your Kindle. Tip number 13 is something that I encourage every Kindle owner to use if they have access to it. What I'm talking about is the warm light functionality. The only Kindle that Amazon is currently selling that does not have warm light is the Kindle Basic. But if you have any other Kindle like the Paperwhite, the Oasis, or the Scribe, you're gonna have warm light. All you have to do is swipe down from the top of the screen. You'll see two different sliders, one for brightness and one for warm light. Now, the warm light functionality is traditionally meant for when you're reading at night, but I like having it on just a little bit during the day because it makes the screen look so much more natural, like reading a real book. Tip number 14 is also a setting that I recommend all Kindle owners use at some point, especially if you have a lot of books that you've purchased and your Kindle home screen is getting very cluttered. The filters feature makes it so much cleaner. Once you open up the filters menu over here, you can turn on the different filters. I like to have only books that are downloaded and unread on my Kindle home screen, and that makes everything else disappear. I only see the books that I'm actively reading on my Kindle. Now, the last essential tip that I have for you, tip number 15, is the ability to adjust your font settings while you read. When you're reading a book, press on that AA icon and you'll have a bunch of settings to choose from. You can increase the font size, the boldness, the margins, the spacing. You can even change the font as a whole. You can set a preset theme so you can easily go back to your settings later on if you want. All of these settings are very customizable. Now, those are the first 15 essential tips of my new book. The book has a total of 46 tips that progressively get more and more advanced. So check out the book for more tips and tricks. It's currently on sale if you're interested, link down below. But also, I do have another video that talks about how to use a Kindle for beginners that goes into much more detail into some of these tips. Link for that on the screen right now too. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.